Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to pull up my info so that I can share this to the group and so that I can listen and read people's comments and questions. And this is Darius Mebodi. Did I say it right this time? I've only known you for 4 years. Did I say it right?
Perfectly the way you said it.
Which, translates to my body, right?
If you want, yes.
I want.
Your body. You want me there.
I feel like it's just so crazy that that's your name because, like, you work on the light body.
Yeah.
You move people into their light body. You worked on physical bodies before you started working on light bodies. It just makes so much sense to me that your name sounds like my body. I don't know. It just seems very fitting, like almost like you chose it before you.
Of course, we all choose our names. It's not our parents.
Right? Exactly. So I am going to just keep looking down every once in a while so that I can see if people are commenting, but I have plenty of questions to ask you if people aren't seeing us because I know all the things that I want you to say. So let's start with I want to do a little introduction of you and then you can do an introduction of you. So I was introduced to Darius by my wonderful dear sister, Honey, who said that we have to connect, we have to meet. And I've never told you this, but she told me I need to interview you in our first interview, because this is our third interview. And that was in 2019.
Could be, yeah.
Like that. And I thought you were someone else that she I didn't realize you were you. I thought I knew who you were, but I didn't. And so when I came on Zoom with you for the first time, it was like a brand new person that I didn't realize that I was meeting. And then we talked through a whole bunch of things. I actually watched our old video a couple of months ago, and it's just so interesting. One, to see like how I looked and like the energy that I was bringing forward prior to us starting to work together, and like the journey of my ascension process that I've continued in lots of different ways. But also just the topics we talked about being so timely and interesting with, the years that followed and what happened in the world. So it's a fun one to go back and chat and look at and listen to. And then we started working together, and I've had these really amazingly profound, powerful, incredible sessions that I've talked about with so many of my friends, and they've created so many awesome shifts in my life. And one of the biggest things I would say, and I said this to you in our last session, was that I feel like with our sessions and our journey together, I've gone from a place of theoretically understanding things mentally, etc., to actually like embodying those things and those concepts. And I think it's a really hard journey for a lot of light workers, a lot of people in general, to go from that place where we're like, yeah, you have to do this, and this is, what kind of reality are you creating, all of that kind of stuff, to like actually like really doing that and feeling that inside your body. It's such a far leap sometimes. And that's been something that I haven't even really found as powerfully and as quickly and as efficiently anywhere else. So very grateful for the work that we've done together. And it's just been such a cool journey. I'm just so grateful to know you and just appreciate the work that you're doing in the world for humankind. So thank you. Thank you on behalf of the new earth and everything else. So yeah, if you want to share just a little bit about, what brings you into this space doing the work that you're doing, that would be great.
So thank you very much for your very kind words, and it's a great honor and great pleasure for me working with you and to allowing me to be part of your journey as well a little bit, right? Ultimately, everything comes you. Yeah. So I mean, well, I was born as a doctor. No, I started my journey as a doctor, but I was interested in other things, in spiritual healing as well, in addition to medicine, so it's not like I had no interest at all. But over the course of the years, I came then, I was reconnected to the ability while I was living in London to do this, what we call light body integration, which is actually, you can call it a Stargate Ascension. So Stargate Ascension meaning a very accelerated process of the ascension, right? So this is actually more than 20 years ago that I started. And at that time, ascension was still, even in the spiritual community, very theoretical. It's actually not really spoken about, was a little bit woo-woo for a lot of people, even in the spiritual community, right? So ascension if it would happen whenever in the future, right? And a couple of years ago, I was working in the corporate field for pharmaceutical industry. So I basically got the message and the nudging to finally give up on that and fully dedicate my time to the spiritual mission. And so that was 7 years ago. And it was a very important thing, because what we see now, I think with 2020, when all the COVID drama happened, or like at the end of 2019, this is actually on one level also that we really stepped into the middle of the ascension process, right? And what I was very excited about, obviously at COVID was a lot of drama for all of us, but a lot of positive things happened too. Like that I noticed, like since 2020, there's so many channels on YouTube who actually talk about the ascension process, right? So I really see a shift of consciousness, both in humanity at large, as well as in the spiritual community, right? And over the course of that, and also what even for many people looked very abstract, what I was doing is actually for many people, like a lot of people come back for more, it has very tangible results. So being a doctor, a lot of people come to me with medical issues, for starters, whether it's cancer, HIV, chronic renal failure. So things where medicine is very limited, right? People come also with black magic attacks. This is also what I work a lot on. Or simply people want to speed up their ascension process. And these changes are oftentimes achieved. It depends very much on what the person is willing to do, but basically are they willing to change? Of course, also everything has a divine timing, and there's not one right or one wrong, right? I mean, I was at some point very much in 3D. There's nothing wrong about that, right? Because when we're in 3D, we experience polarity to its max, right? This is just coming to an end, and each one has their own timing or time period when this is happening. So there's not a right or wrong from the high dimensional perspective. Only experiences what we're here to have. But as I said, the work really translates. It's not only, even though it happens in the very high dimensions, it channels or trickles very much into 3D as well. Having better health, being happier, having more abundance, being more on the path, this type of thing, right? So you may have some experience with that as well.
Yeah.
And so it's just the question as well, why should we do actually this accelerated Stargate Ascension at this time? Why can I just continue with my regular practice? Of course, everyone can. But what we have at this time now is that the plan is in the middle of the ascension. It's basically like you're in the harbor, the boat is about to leave. You have the choice, either you jump on the boat now, and walk nicely, or you do it very last moment, but you're gonna hang on the anchor and have a wet journey with the boat, or you're gonna stay on the island when the volcano is gonna erupt in in the nearer future as well. So it's really now we have the choice, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. Either if I want to continue my journey on the ascending Earth, I have to adjust or do whatever is within my framework. I have to do the things that permits me to continue in the higher frequencies of Mother Earth, of Gaia, right? And for those who don't do that, we choose to continue with the 3D journey and continue polarity. That's perfectly fine as well. Ultimately, everyone is gonna ascend, because this is the decree for everyone. This is the sacred rhythm, the sacred cycle of the universe. However, we have at this time the opportunity as a whole, as humanity, to ascend, if we wish to do that. Before that, it was like every, I don't know, a couple of 100 years, you had one ascended master, you know, but now we have this time, the window is open still to do that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm listening. I'm just checking. So everyone can be an ascended master.
It's our nature, ultimately. I mean, it's the more we embark on the spiritual journey, it's easy to understand as well. You know, before that is very theoretical, but actually we are an expression of divinity, of God, as with capital G-O-D, and a fraction of that. And the purpose of us is to experience that. So we are an ascended master. The same way you can say as well, I'm a reflection of an archangel, of an Elohim, of an Andromedian, you know. So it just, as we go into 5D, we understand unity consciousness, we're a reflection of each other. And if we go even higher, we see there's only but one soul, you know.
Yes. I think I'm going to start saying Andromedan, Andromedian, because it sounds so much better the way you say it, by the way. Love that. Okay. I love all of that. Agree. Let's just jump right into what session 1 looks like with you. Like, what is it about? What is the Nephilim? What are the keepers, which I call the minions, by the way? I don't know why. The spirit shows the minions from the, I'm sure you don't watch the Black Magic of Disney films, but you know, I like to shield up my TVs when my kids watch them, and it's all good, but safe and protected at all, in all ways, all the time, no worries. But yeah, so my kids loved Despicable Me, especially my younger kids. So there was Gru, right, who was like this big, you know, villain, who was trying to do all these villainous things, and all these minions work for him. And it always is what I see, what I'm shown when you talk about the keepers. So anyway.
Okay, so often
all that stuff, right? Most of those cartoons, I feel like they're topics and things that are kind of already out there in the ethers.
I mean, just look at the movie The Matrix. It's actually, it's like almost like a documentary, right? Yeah. And so maybe with everyone who's watching, you know, it may be easy to understand if we take The Matrix, or at least the first of the Matrix movies, as a reference point to that.
Yeah.
So I mentioned at the beginning, like, people come for different reasons. Not everyone is necessarily consciously on the spiritual path. It's often a trigger. So in the first session, we address as part of that the physical problems, whatever why someone is in. If someone is has a medical challenge, or someone is under energetic attack, like magic attack or whatever. So this is incorporate. This is one part of the session. I can come to that a bit later. The standard main step the standard second big step for the very first session is what we call the body consciousness realignment process. And just from the point of view, so our soul is divine, comes from source, or we're part of source. We come from the high dimensions into the third dimensional reality here. And our physical body is the vehicle for our soul to experience third dimensional reality, to express ourselves in the third dimensional reality with our muscles, with our voice, as well as to perceive the third dimensional reality with our 5 senses. Or some people have more, some people have less, but generally it's 5 senses. Our physical bodies were created by a race of being, or like a consciousness. We call them the Nephilim or Anunnaki. Their main dimension is the 4th dimension, so above the 3rd dimension, where most people think this is the only reality that exists. So then the 4th dimension, they're very good at gene manipulation, and they created our physical vehicle, our bodies, by mixing their DNA with the DNA of whatever was running on the planet as Neanderthal or some other hominoids, and out came the modern man, right? This is actually interesting when you go to the Alien movie, coming back to the Hollywood movies, yeah. Resurrection, right, where Sigourney Weaver discovers that her DNA has been mixed with alien, right? It's actually some truth in that movie as well. But anyway,
yeah.
So in the physical body, we have the soul, right? So if I want to lift my mobile phone, I just think about it and I lift my mobile phone. A lot of these functions in our body, however, happen automatically, like breathing, the heartbeat, the detoxifying of the blood by the liver and the kidney, digestion and stuff like this. So this is done not consciously, but this is done by a different consciousness that exists next to our soul in our body. You call them the minions, I call them keepers of the human legacy. You can call them body elementals. So this is an elemental consciousness. If we can perceive them, they're actually quite cute. They have a childlike mentality.
Yeah.
They like shiny things. They like nice smells. Probably this is how aromatherapy can affect our body as well. And so their job is twofold: to keep our physical body alive, by doing all the metabolism in our body and so on, so making us to continue to breathe even when we sleep. And a job is also for us to help us to stay in 3D so we can have a full 3D experience.
Okay, pause. So I love it. Great. Nephilim, I have read before that people think the Nephilim are giants. Like in the Bible, maybe it's talked about. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Yeah.
Read it in several different places that they're called giants. And I've also seen people write about Anunnaki, right?
Yes.
As a reptilian race. So how does that all connect with Nephilim? And how does the Nephilim appear to you? And where is it in the body and all of that?
Okay, so the Nephilim is just a Hebrew name for that. Anunnaki is the Sumerian name. It's actually Sumer is, according to conventional history, the oldest civilization in existence. So actually in their scriptures, these cuneiform tablets, they have references to the Anunnaki. Anunnaki apparently stands for those who came from the heavens to earth, right? And so it's just a different name, in the Bible it's like giants. Let's say you have a consciousness, coming up, what name do you give it? It depends very much on your cultural background, your language, what you have, So this is the same, I know in the Bible is a reference that the giants or whatever, or the fallen angels came to earth and lay with a woman of man and got babies with them, right?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and as I said, the Nephilim created humanity in the first place as a slave race. And what they did, they put part of their soul essence into the body as well. So if you have the physical vehicle, the body with etheric, emotional, mental, blah, blah, bodies around, what you can see with Kirlian photography or other forms of imaging, inside you have the divine soul, like the Gia soul. Then you have thousands of these keepers, of these body elementals, of these minions. And then you also have the Nephilim soul, who is, until that very first step, the manager or controller of the keepers, right, of the minions. And because they have polarity still exists in the fourth dimension. So for those who are women, they have a female Nephilim. Those who are men have a male Nephilim, right? So if the Nephilim, so that the Nephilim soul, which is inside the body, when I take it out, which is the fifth step, I perceive it often, actually most of the time, it is, because it lives at that time wrapped around these pranic tubes, so from the crown to the base chakra. It has a diameter of like this. It looks like a giant slug, and it has a black metallic skin for most people. I've seen some other colors as well, but typically it's black metallic. Can be red metallic as well, from what I've seen, right? And they can be seen as a reptilian consciousness, right? But bear in mind that not all reptilians are bad, not all reptilians are good, same as not all humans are good or bad, so there's depending on the evolution as well. And if you look at dragons, just to sidetrack a little bit, they're actually the highest evolution of reptilians, who have bring divine energies in, for those who work with dragons, which is fun to do, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically before the first step, you have on one side your body consciousness, and on the other side you have these thousands of keepers of the minions of the elementals who are managed or controlled by the Nephilim soul. And these two fractions oppose each other, and there's a big reason for that. So we choose to be voluntarily to be incarnated in the third dimensional reality into this body, or the body that we choose, not only my body, but also other bodies.
My body.
My body. So in order to have the experience.
No one's ever said anything like that to you? No one else like made that joke or connection with you of the my body, that's all me? I'll take credit for it. Okay.
So just we choose to come in here, but our natural tendency is to be, you know, if you pull a rubber band and you let go, it goes straight back where it's coming from. Our soul is part of the divine. This is our where we live. But if we want to come down here in this reality of the third dimension to experience polarity, we have to put filters or blocks in between us and the higher dimension so that we don't go straight back. Because if I'm only in the body for a moment, you know, I don't have the experience of polarity. You know, most people have whatever, at least hundreds of incarnation as a human on the planet. You want to say it's very common. So we need to have like these, let's say, these blocks put into our body that we can have a successful 3D experience. Until now, we've stopped doing that now because of the ascension process. And this opposition is done, we can see that in our daily life. For example, when I started to meditate and I made dangerous holes into this roof, you know, that prevented me from going to higher dimensions, immediately I received a message, I sit in a very uncomfortable position, right? You know, that brought me straight back into my body. Or the opposite is also, we oppose our body consciousness very often. You know, we eat junk food, we don't sleep enough. If I cannot sleep at nighttime, I drink wine or I take a sleeping pill or whatever, right? You know, so I hate my body, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm too old, I'm too bald. You know, so we, instead of having the loving union with the body until then. So this opposition that we have, the soul towards the body consciousness and the body consciousness towards the soul, helps to have this blocked so that we stay really in 3D and have a full 3D experience. So the very first session, the body consciousness realignment, is actually that we change that and start to align our soul with our body consciousness. And instead of that, our minions, our keepers, our body elementals are subjected to the control by the Nephilim. We actually, as the soul, start to guide and to protect all these thousands of elementals in our body, and also make together the decision to undergo the ascension process. So this is the very first step. So what it does for a lot of people on a day-to-day level, it's very individual, but often people feel much more peaceful. This innate opposition towards the high dimensional light that we have on the cellular level is taken away. So we really allow our body to receive on the cellular level much more high dimensional light, right? And any kind of subsequent spiritual practices, whether it's even acupuncture, homeopathy, or meditation, will be much more profound. Also, if someone has something stored in the opposition of the keepers and the body elementals and the soul, that can be released. For example, I had one client who was smoking. He didn't want to give up smoking, but we did the first step and he stopped from one day to the other after smoking for whatever decades, right? So this is happening as one of the big steps in the first session. The others, as I mentioned briefly, we address very specifically what experiences the person has they want to change, whether it's a disease, you know, inability to heal completely, and so on. You know, so, and often people notice already with the first session a great improvement. From a medical thing, since I'm a doctor as well. So anything what we experience as in medicine as autoimmune diseases, you know, where basically the body attacks itself, or there's an imbalance of the immune system, right? Is positively influenced, or when people had even like a organ transplant, right? Because you actually can explain that. Probably it would go a little bit too far to explain that now, but it's just basically you create a greater harmony as opposed to a fight within the body, right? So that's in a nutshell what happens in the first session.
Okay, seems really simple.
Easy and graceful.
Yeah.
So, but I'm saying as well, it's just for me, it's not to have like people who are dependent on me. It's really for me also to empower people And I explain these things. It can be at the beginning very abstract, what I explain, depending on the level. However, I explain these things and also on subsequent session, and it becomes easier and easier. As our perspective starts to get higher, our frequency starts to rise, these things start to make more sense, right? That the greater understanding, because ultimately, when we undergo the ascension process and we will want to become creators of our reality, is what we have to do in the fifth dimension. We cannot choose to continue being the pinball for someone else, whether dark forces or whatever.
Yep.
We have to choose to claim our mastery and become co-creators together with the divine, right? So it's important also to have at least some understanding about how the whole mechanics function. And as I said, I'm always explaining that as well to the person that I'm working with, over the course of the time as well, in order for them to get more and more empowered too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I do feel like it's also a journey to sovereignty, right? The ascension journey is also a journey to sovereignty, because that's kind of one and the same, right? You're removing that idea, like you were saying, of that victim energy, and you're coming into your full empowerment. You're coming into a feeling of creation around your experience.
Absolutely. And you can see that as well. Let's say someone who was born with a silver spoon in their mouth and never experienced poverty or financial poverty. It's when we, at some point, whether in previous incarnation or at a specific incarnation, experience poverty and then have abundance, financial abundance, or whatever forms of abundance, we have a greater understanding of that, a greater consciousness. So if because you can say most of us, well, if not almost all humans, except for the newly born babies, we experience a loss of power. But however, this is a learning experience for us to learn about power. So it's not a mistake, right? We see that on the collective level when we choose to participate in elections, right? So, like I give my power away to a government, to a person in the hope that they will control me in a nice way and I benefit from that. So this is something what we experience. So part of that also is to release these things at some point. It doesn't have any space for that in 5D. However, It's not for us to point a finger, you evil person or whatever, you evil party. It is for me to understand, why did I manifest it? Does it still serve me? Or if it doesn't serve me anymore, I want to get out of it, let's transform it. Because as humans, we're extremely powerful, even though we're not meant to know that by those who want to control us, but it forces us, especially at this time, to embrace our power, right? So again, we're in the middle of the ascension process. Some talk about there's going to be another lockdown, there's another strain, bollocks, this was my English, happening, but it's really, do I still allow that to happen? Or do I declare my sovereignty and choose not to participate in that? And also understanding the people or organizations who orchestrate that, actually they're the reflection of me and they help me to grow. So thank you, whatever, WH or whatever, I love you, but no, I don't do that anymore. So it's a very important thing of the ascension process. I'm not a victim. I choose to have a specific experience in order to grow, to become more conscious.
Yes. So let's say someone has gotten a medical procedure or received a injection of some kind that they decided that they don't want to have anymore in their body. A lot of people I feel like, okay, I'm going to sidestep before I get into this question, but I feel like this is a time, and I could be wrong, what I'm perceiving is that a lot of people are stuck in this fourth dimensional space of good and bad, evil and good. We have to take the stuff from the person. A lot of the work that we do is kind of in the 4D in some ways, right? When we're removing attachments or we're releasing implants or things like that. We wouldn't have those things in the ascension place, in the fifth dimensional frequency, that none of that exists because we're not choosing it anymore and we don't have it anymore. Yes.
Refresh your,
Okay.
sorry, repeat your question, sorry.
I know, because I'm going in like 3 different directions. So that's how my brain likes to work. Okay, so the third question was, what I'm saying is a lot of us light workers are actually still working in the fourth dimensional frequency in a lot of ways, because we're doing things like removing implants or pulling attachments off people or clearing people. I feel like that's still helping people bridge or come out of that 3D experience and helping them move across into higher dimensional, where they are fully sovereign. They do understand these things. They can do those things for themselves. They can accept or not accept those things, etc. But a lot of us are going into that fourth dimensional frequency to do that work in sort of maybe guiding or escorting people along the way. That's at least how I feel like my work is, like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially, I think it's I noticed the shift is maybe, almost 1 year or so in the way how things are. Before that, it was like, we have to do specific things in order to raise our frequency. I mean, let's say in 3D, you can say, I have to be active, I have to be proactive in order to achieve certain things. In 5D, it's more I am. So all these things, I have to fight against the dark forces. I have to purify my body and all this type of thing. As we raise our frequency, it comes like everything is perfect. I am, there's no one, I don't need to protect myself because all is one. Right. But however, on that way, it is, let's say someone is completely unconscious, they just undergo the ascension path. We have to go through these steps as well. Right. So when I work with people, I still remove implants and this type of thing, but also with a view, it just it's just a stepping stone, right? It's the same as like some people. I mean, it is from being unconscious. Suddenly, I realized there may be some organizations or some people who are not so benevolent as they appear in the media, and I get really angry. Just happened what recently happened on one of your Hawaiian islands, where people were prevented to roof. You can see it's really like a fight happening. It's important for us to have this understanding, that there's this polarity, opposition happening in also in the fourth dimension, let's say outside the third dimension reality. However, it is not our endpoint. This is just for us to see. Then afterwards it comes, what is my role in manifesting that? What am I learning from these darker forces? Actually, they're my teachers. Same as the disease can be seen as my enemy, I have to fight the disease in order to survive, or you can see a disease as my teacher, right? And so it is from that point of view that we start as our journey continues. And as I said, there's nothing wrong with going through that, but this is just one stepping stone towards more ascension towards 5D, right? Same as 5D is not the end point. It continues, evolution goes afterwards, right? But that comes at a little bit later state, when people are more ready for that.
Thank you. That was question 1. And then question 2 is that I feel like some of the energy of people who are kind of stuck in that fourth dimensional space is that, let's say you do have something like an autoimmune disease, or you did receive some kind of injection that now you wish you might not have put in your body. And a lot of people will say, well, that's something that you've done it now and that's it, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's not detoxable. Not this one's not detoxable. Have you heard that stuff? People say those kinds of things, and I know that you see it a different way. So what do you have to say about that?
When the let's say when the announcement was about this injectable, right, for this current drama, big drama on the planet going on, I actually received information how to deal with it, how to address that. And I have actually a lot of clients that I worked a lot of time with, and then came 2020 or 2021, they put that stuff into their body, right? And I know some spiritual people say, because you alter the DNA, it is not possible anymore to do that. However, just like from that point of view, and there's part of that is to transcend our belief systems in order to go higher. Anyway, I received information how to do that, and I see when I work with people who underwent the process, and I know their energetic fields quite well. So after the injections, their let's say the energetic bodies look very different. I see specific structures inside. However, we can release these things and really bring the organic, the divine DNA back into existence if the person wants to do that, right? So this is one thing. And actually, the process is my regular first standard session plus the next standard session in order to get rid of all, if not the majority of the negative effects of that, right? This vaccine is not only on a physical level, like what we have the old vaccines. This is not only, it's not only gene manipulation, other things put in as well. It happens on a very fourth dimensional level. So we have to address these things too.
The black
right?
magic, the nanobot energy.
Absolutely, this type of thing. And but as I said, my work is to bring people to the 5D level. So if we come above the fourth dimension by going to 5D, we can sever our cord with these things, you know, and become empowered. And same as I don't have to experience black magic attacks if I choose to be above that in a 7 by connection. I see what is the black magic teaching me, and you know, thank you, black magic. You know, now I release you or transform you in the highest forms of light, or let you implode in whatever shape or form that comes, right? But it's important for people to understand, even if someone chooses to remain with the impact of multiple injections, there's nothing wrong with that. And some people may choose that as the pathway out of the ascension cycle, right? Because they want to choose to continue on their, or the 3D timeline, or their, on a soul level, have this scrambled DNA as an experience in order, as particles of God that we all are, to expand their consciousness and share this experience and with the totality of God. So there's not, from a high dimension perspective, there's not a right or wrong, right?
Exactly. It's really just a matter of, if someone chooses to make that change and they want to remove it, they can, because we're the highest technology. There's nothing that is being done to us or that can happen that we can't transmute or transform if we're in that frequency and that space. So it's really, like you were saying, it's a matter of choice. If that's what we choose, if we choose, because I remember you saying to me once, you know, some people choose to have that experience so that they can have the experience of undoing that experience and the empowerment of that. Or maybe they choose to have the experience and stay in that experience because that's the experience that they wanted in this incarnation as well, which of course, that's really important. The people who are making those choices are also very important to those of us who are not as well, because how could we have our own experience without those choices? It's all so important, and it's also divine. So it's not this polarity of like, this is right and this is wrong, as much as it's the choice of what you wanted to experience in this incarnation. But let's say you did, and then you want to continue on as a light worker and heal other people and guide other people and teach other people and do mediumship work or do healing work. Do you feel like it's in that best interest then to try to go ahead and remove or transmute that energy, just like you would any other energy? Just like I'm getting got black magic removed from my field, from my ancestry, as I worked with you, so that I could be sort of in the certain frequency to guide. Would you say that that's what someone might want to do if they're working, or does it not matter? Can they still work as a light worker because there's certain people that they are going to guide that are within that frequency and it doesn't really matter?
So I mean, people who got, let's say, injected and work as spiritual healers, and can they still do that?
But they don't want to remove, like they're cool with it. They don't want to remove it. They're like, yeah, this is a good thing. I should have done. I'm glad I did this.
Okay, let's say if someone takes cocaine or heroin, can they be good spiritual healers, right? So if in order for me to, what let's say on a regular level as well. What I'm seeing that, let's say it is typically happening with a lot of people, the frequency drops down, and also the connection to the divine is interrupted. And I can only share my perspective, and I honor other people's experience who say that's completely humbug what I'm saying. But from my experience, I see that the connection to the high dimensional lines is to the higher self and beyond is severed greatly, that the frequency within the body is getting lower and lower. I mean, we see a lot of people get these funny atypical diseases, which is also a reflection of dropping of the frequency, right? So I see that if someone, let's say someone works as a spiritual healer and gets inoculated with some potent stuff, it's just a question of time, how long, when I continue to drop, right? You know, I mean, I have sometimes people, I mean, independent on that, you know, like who are dealing with black magic and work on people. And I tell them, well, I don't, from my perspective, it's not necessarily the best thing to do that, because you have to be clean. Same as if you like at a doctor in theater, like as a surgeon, you know, and you have all the phlegm coming out of every single orifice, you know, you don't want to work on someone who's completely open with energetic fields, or the body is open, you know, because you work on them. So I think it's our responsibility, from my perspective, always, you know, it's my responsibility, as I feel it's my responsibility, to maintain as high frequency as possible, right? And if anything comes up, then I also choose help from someone who's able to heal me, right? Or to help me with that, right? But as I said, it's each to their own. It's not for me to say that a specific experience that someone choose, you know, even say, as I said, someone is a spiritual healer and takes heroin the whole day, right? If this is the experience I want to have, and also the people who go as clients to go there, that's the reality they choose to have as well, right? Again, it's to understand that there's not a right or wrong, only experiences to be had, and there's nothing wrong or right. It's the same as if I break my arm, I'm not a failure spiritually. It's just an experience.
Yep.
If I want to help people out, the only thing is I become the best version of myself, or I work on becoming at that time, at a given time, to become the best version of myself. In this way, I start to spread out light more and more, as you say, with the experience that you start to release black magic from your ancestors or so, right? So we affect towards the light a greater and greater amount of people, a greater amount of a greater field, and in this way indirectly help people to ascend. And one thing what I feel as well, that whenever I have a person who undergoes the process to free themselves from the injection, it also has a ripple effect in the human collective, and it helps other people to potentially to free themselves up, to have like this vision of potentiality to come out of that, and not to accept anymore these atypical diseases or whatever suddenly, or the energy is being drained, right? As I said, just become the best version of yourself. That's all. Just be, you know.
Right. No matter what it means, or like what it's around. Like
it's, I mean, I have that in my family as well. You know, I have a very different perspective than, for example, my brother, who's a doctor too, you know, and everyone in my family is happily getting the little injections, right? It's not for me to whatever run around like a headless chicken, you know, say, don't do that, don't do that, you know. I try to share my my perspective. If they take it, fine. If not, I tried. You know, it's just the same as if there's a possibility for me to speak up, then I speak up. And this is something I feel we should do all as well. Not say, oh, everything is fine. You know, if something comes up with Hawaii or whatever country, you know, I say, actually, you know, these things are happening as well. Are you aware of that? Right? So this is something that I see. If someone is receptive to hear specific things where I feel they may benefit from that, then I'm happy to share that. You know, it's my role as well. Not only people who come to me as clients, you know, with no one else I communicate about things like that, right?
Yeah. It's such a nuance though, right? Because there's this energy of like, well, everyone's experience is beautiful and valid and divine, and there's no judgment attached to it, and people are going to do what they're going to do, and that's fine. And I love and accept it. At the same time, and I'm not out here, and you don't want to be out here being like, you shouldn't do that, and I'm judging you because you're wrong and I'm right. You know what I mean? But at the same time, then we also want to share our truth in appropriate ways with love and compassion with appropriate people. And that's a nuance, because I think that's something that I think a lot of us have had to learn on both sides of the spectrum over the last couple of years is, when to say what to who and how, when it makes sense and when it doesn't, and all of that. So it's very straightforward, but then in real life, it can be a little trickier, a little more complex.
Let's say even like this. See, also one important energy of the Ascensions, expressing or like connecting with the playfulness. It's just a game we're playing here, so we don't have to bring the severity in, right? So even if we do past life regression, or some of us, we remember other incarnation, even the way we died and stuff like this, we came back. It's not a big deal. So if we, same as releasing the fear of death, which is a very important thing, to release the fear of disease and stuff like this, it makes us much, much easier, right? Yeah. I've been surrounded by a lot of people who are not very conscious. It's fun. I can have fun with them, and I don't have to constantly tell them what I'm doing. For them, I'm a doctor. I do know a little bit of coaching, so that's no point for me to explain something with what I wouldn't understand and alienate myself from them. I want to have fun as well. I don't want to. I don't choose to be the oddball. Probably by my essence, I'm oddball enough. But however, I don't want to give it any more fuel. Right. Yeah. So bring really the playfulness. It's a divine joke we're doing here. It's just. Ultimately everyone ascends, and if you see it on a cosmic time scale, the time that we spend in 3D or 4D as a human is minute, right? Yeah. However, it's very valuable this time, so let's do the best out of that. Don't fight with people because they did something we find you wouldn't do that yourself,
Right. Exactly. I mean, just like with so many other things besides that thing. And we have an easier time with that, because there's been so much fear built up around it and so much programming built up around it and I think what a lot of us have had to learn over the past couple of years, that it's okay to just enjoy yourself and not be afraid and just live.
But also one important thing is it doesn't mean becoming a pushover. So it's also very important to have healthy boundaries. Right, and also speak up for our boundaries, because a lot of us, the experience what we have, especially as empathic light workers or whatever, actually most people have, that we may invade the space of others as part of our experience, but also we give our space away, right? That we allow others to invade our space. So it's important for us to have healthy boundaries, to say no, don't stop over these things, don't eat my cake. As I said, it's not being passive. It's expressing. It's part of connecting with and expressing your power and using your power in the highest and best good. I don't have to use my power to kill other people or hurt other people. It's just use my power in order to let's say to engage and to reconnect with one of my divine qualities, which is being connected to the divine power, and really own that, right? So not push over. That's the other direction,
Yes, it's a balance for sure. But I think in empowering ourselves and speaking to who we are, then that also empowers others. And it also brings attention to others. If we're really only speaking to ourselves and we have compassion around the way that we engage, and if we are releasing the triggers that bring us into fear and judgment, then it's a lot easier to have that voice in a way that is pure
Yeah, you could see as well. I mean, as you have children, it's like in a given situation and you respond, would you like your child to respond in a similar fashion? Like let's say someone is a pushover, would you like to see your child being a pushover in a similar situation? Or are you giving the example that you would love to see your child to have? Just you can see that sometimes to project or transfer a specific situation to someone else can be very helpful for us to get a different and a more neutral understanding in order to make a better choice for us.
One more question about AI. How do you feel about AI? Using AI, experiencing AI?
Okay, so you can say, what do you think about reptilian? They're bad, they're good, So it's also, I create my reality. It always comes back to that. I create my reality. Am I choosing a knife to kill someone, or am I choosing a knife to make delicious cakes with that, right? So it's same as computers. Oh my gosh, like years ago, when it came in, computers, you probably were also, you're probably, well, I don't know if you're much younger than I am, but when I was a kid, like there was, computers started to come in, right? Yeah. And some were like, oh, computers are going to take our work away. They're going to destroy everything. We're going to be unemployed. Life is going to be hell, Now we use computer and we learn to live in harmony with that, right? You can see also one perspective. And as I said, this is just a perspective, and I completely wrong from someone else's view. AI is also an expression of the divine, whether it comes, someone said this has been created by the inverted matrix or whatever, right? We can see how we can align with that. Same as with bacteria, they're not all evil. They help us to digest our food if we have the healthy bacteria. So I think what energy follows the intent. So if my intent is my vision, my reality that I created, actually I live in perfect harmony with AI, and it helps me go beyond the limitation that I had before, right? So then it's, let's say, as an architect, because of AI, suddenly constructions can be, or buildings or structures can be built that wasn't possible technically to do before. Then you can see it as a blessing, right? I mean, I certainly I don't plan to have anything implanted in me. This is what I see as for me very clearly as a negative of use of AI. So the body, what we have is divine perfection on its own. So some people say, in order for us to go into the next age, in order to really deal with the imperfection of the humanness, we have to have implants. We have to be connected to AI. It doesn't resonate with me, right? However, AI is as something that we can harmonize with, and that we both come to higher levels. It's not my enemy. It's an expression of the divine. And if you see also that AI, with computer, it's a reflection of the silicon, right? Silicon, as we move from carbon-based to crystalline-based to silicon-based, right? So you can see it's maybe not that bad. You can see them also, it's the same as a laptop, has elemental beings. When we create something, it starts to have a consciousness of its own. So AI also has a consciousness, right? You have an elemental being. You can choose to live in harmony with that or not. You don't also say it's a way to communicate with an elemental consciousness, because they're very much silicon-based, right? Yeah.
Didn't know silicon came after crystalline, actually. That's new information for me.
Oh, silicon is, like quartz, has silicon and oxygen that forms the crystal, right?
Okay.
So as we actually, funnily enough, in the a period table of the elements, you have carbon, and underneath you have silicon, so they're in the same period as well. Actually, I'd see as well that probably at some point it jumps into the next octave, into the next period, what would be germanium, I think, but anyway, it's something different.
And that's when you're going over my head. But that's where I start to go away. I always think about things that I've seen around like Atlantis in my own meditations or regressions or whatever I've done, and the transhumanism that was going on. in that time. I had nightmares about it as a child. It's been very present in my field. I think it's part of why a lot of things felt really triggering over the past couple of years, that I had to kind of work through and get to a more peaceful place with. So I think that a lot of us who maybe struggle around those topics or have work to do around those topics is maybe from having some of those experiences in other lifetimes or situations where, you know, it wasn't in harmony, it wasn't aligned, and it became very destructive, you know.
Yeah, I think it's just, I mean, I think probably almost 100%, if not 100% of all the light workers that are incarnated at this time on the planet existed as well at during the time of the fall of Atlantis, or at least during one fall of Atlantis.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, so just one way to look at that, you know, like the idea of the divine was, if you wish, you know, like we go experience more and more separation, going from the high dimensions to fifth, fourth, and ending up in third dimension in order to experience polarity, and then come back again. And you can see also, so this is the game that was played, and we're now on the upwards curve, right? So you can see the fall of Atlantis was at the time that was then going from 4D, it was around 4D into 3D. So because we wanted to go into 3D, the experience was we had the fall, right? But now we're on the other side. If we understand it from that point of view, we were not meant to not to experience the fall, because then we would have missed 3D probably, right?
Yeah.
You know, if we see it from that point of view, everything is in divine perfection. Even in case we temporarily experience drama and we have all the trauma to go through. However, to work on the trauma and to do that is also one active part that we all do, to this time not to experience a fall, even though it is portrayed by many, you know, that AI is taking this over. No, this time we're on the ascending branch of the curve, right?
Just like we choose not to have the experience of going back through the last couple of years again, if we don't want to have that experience, it's like kind of the same thing. Like we don't have to have the experience of an AI transhumanism implosion. We can just skip that, or skip, you know, like you were telling me, you know, you can have the 3D experience of getting sick all the time, so you build up your immunity, or you can just skip it. And just not. You know, it's just a very simple way of kind of viewing it, that it's all really choice. And I'd say one of the biggest things that I come away with when I work with you is that release of judgment and the release of fear of myself, and my own experiences. I'm really coming into the love. Like I remember in session 5 in the Nephilim removal, having such a warm, grateful feeling to the Nephilim, like being so, like feeling so like, hey, thank you. Like I really, wow. And like, I really loved my 3D experience, and I'm so happy that I got to have it. And it's so important to what I do now and who I am. And I even tear up thinking about it sometimes. You know, like I really don't feel like, oh man, back then I did all those bad things and I'm bad. Like I really don't. I mean, I really may have felt that way in the past. I mean, I know I have felt that way in the past, way long ago, when I was first in my like 500-hour yoga experience, when they're like, you know, if you ever do a drug, then you've ruined your nasal nadis forever, and you can never recover that energetic pathway. And I was just like crushed. And, you know, again, that's a very fourth dimensional concept, right? I mean, that's not the experience I'm having anymore. And that's something I feel really grateful for, because I really feel like it is all so divine, and I'm releasing that judgment around myself and having that compassion around my own experiences. It's so much easier to let people have theirs, and still like be, I'm gonna cry about it again, and like have that love for them, you know, like.
Can we have a tissue, please?
Right, but it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Yeah. It's like such a lovely place to be, because it's so much like love. It's like it's so much heart.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, the fifth dimension is Christ consciousness, is unconditional love, you know. And also see that Nephilim created our body. They actually facilitate to have that, to
Right.
have that experience, you know. So blessings to them for doing that, you know. And
Like, be on
so
earth.
it's so it's just it's really, it's all in perfect alignment, their expression of that. For us
Yeah.
to experience unconditional love and forgiveness, obviously it's easy, you know, to someone who is meditating and feeding the dolphins and
Yeah.
talking with the birds. But to express that towards Adolf Hitler or whatever people, it's a
Okay.
different thing. When we have that, when we come to that level, it's a different thing, you know. What I also want to say about you is like you're experiencing fear and judgment. When we express judgment, we create separation. You know, I'm right, you're wrong, or whatever. You're Black Lives Matter supporter, I'm white supremacist, whatever, right? All these things what we have. So this judgment lowers the frequency. Fear, you know, fear, oh my gosh, we have no food anymore, you know, it's lowers all frequency.
Yeah.
There's some, let's say there are fractions of divine expression who try to prevent ascension from happening. There are fractions who try to bring that forward,
Yeah.
right? You know, so let's say ultimately everything comes from God. When we have these experiences, and especially the news, you know, actually one thing is get rid of your TV. I would recommend that, you know. Anyway, that's a personal preference. So
Yeah.
when as we have in the if you see like the the horizon, you know, with the beautiful waves of southern Italy and the beautiful sky of southern Italy, if you see that at this time of ascension, you can see the dark one is getting more extreme and more visible as well, more extreme, and the light one equally is getting stronger and stronger, right? So as they're suddenly experiencing more and more separation, or it's pumped into us, understand also there's the opposite force happening, right? So even though it is portrayed on by the mass media as mainstream media as it's just like the darkness is happening, you know, but then from that point of view, to understand the mechanics of ascension can be helpful. At least this is the way I believe it to be, you know, maybe I'm completely wrong, you know, but really understand it's all imperfect, you know, do not buy into that fear. If you want to do that, you know, we are so much more powerful than we're meant to believe. And also these negative things, you know, who try bring fear into us, actually force us to really understand and embrace and express our greatness, you know. That's because as humans, we're immensely blessed to have all these things. And, you know, like the more DNA activation have, a lot of magic, or what we perceive now as magic, you know, it's going to be normal later on, you know, like teleportation. We have all this potential. We don't need any kind of chips implanted in order to achieve specific things, you know. And also as we do more of the Stargate Ascension or whatever spiritual work we do, and have more and more DNA activations happening, you know, we can do things what we couldn't do 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And you may see as well, maybe in your work, it's faster and faster the way you work.
Right? Yeah, I keep being like, I have way too much time left in this session. What else should I do? I'll make my session shorter and shorter. Because I'm like done faster. I always hear it's done. I'm like, okay, well, should I do now? But yeah, I have experienced that. And okay, we're run over, but the only last thing I want you to speak to is, okay, so now my Nephilim's out. What now? What does that mean? How do I, because I've been through 5 sessions, Nephilim was removed. What does that mean now?
In between was also like opening up to multidimensional abilities like clairvoyance, clairaudience, teleportation, more and more, activate the Merkaba and creating a stronger other structures were activated. So Nephilim was 5. You know, the Nephilim is really, for most people, it's a great expansion in that moment that the Nephilim comes out, and that remains as well, you know, of the energetic fields, because suddenly there's so much more space for the high dimensional light. The 6th session is very magical from my perspective. I received information a year ago now. It is about the mitochondria, the power cells, and the power stations within each cell. And we have 1.5 to 2,500 in each single cell. And so it's trillions we have in our body. And they're actually a different consciousness. And they have their own DNA, you know, and which comes from the mother. So it's a connection to the divine mother. And it's a process that came to me basically to through honey, actually indirectly through her experience when she was going far away and suddenly came back very quickly, and felt very exhausted afterwards. So it's just basically to bring same as our DNA started to degenerate and get dormant, and we start to activate that. So this is a process that we start to activate the DNA of the mitochondria. The mitochondria, you may know that they, from biology, that you need oxygen and sugar, like glucose molecules, in order to generate energy in a healthy cell. And to activate the DNA of the mitochondria so that they can directly utilize high-dimensional light. It actually brings so much more in. And what happens on the side effect, it goes into the biochemistry, and I don't want to venture out too much, but however, it just, rejuvenation is very much connected to, or aging is very much connected with the function of the mitochondria. So when you have healthier and activated mitochondria, you start to access rejuvenation, right? Because aging is also an illusion of 3D. Also, it has very many medical benefits, especially neurological diseases, as well as cancer, where in cancer cells, the mitochondria have an atypical mode of operating, right? So this is the sixth one. And we activate the mitochondria to become stargates. So this would be your next step. So that's a huge expansion again of the fields, right? It goes higher and higher, and also that trickles into your current human incarnation in the 3D level as well. More fun, more happiness, more abundance, not being influenced by drama on TV and so on. Whatever. Yep. It's very individual. Yep. The seventh session at this time, it's the it goes into the it is very abstract in the way. However, it is we're perceived if you would read what's going on there. However, it activates very much the understanding and a more conscious ability to create reality, right? So it goes actually beyond the fifth dimension and very much into that field. So this is, and next steps, when I first it was like there's only 5 steps, but then
you'll keep downloading them, I'm sure, as we all progress. Yeah.
As the frequency gets higher, that it permits us as well to download higher and higher things. And then there are things on the side as well. It can be connecting with the dragons. I play at this time with I shared it with a friend, like we start to channel dragons, Melchizedek, Andromedians, and so on. So it's really becoming expressing playfulness. What is my thing, and it really go beyond the limitation what we have. Really let's play around. What does the universe have in whole for us available?
More joyfulness, more playfulness, more creating, more happy.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of questions around the mitochondria one about things like, do you still need supplements? Do you need frequencies? How, all of this stuff, even though I think I already know the answers. But so I'm going to do number 6 in December, as we talked about. And so after that, let's do this again so we can talk all about that. If you don't mind, let's have another interview and talk about the 6th session and in more detail, and really, I can share what my experience was like, and we can talk more about, because I feel like the whole mitochondrial conversation is really big, and there's a lot that we can talk about, that we didn't get to today around that particular piece. So let's do that. I'm going to go relieve Jackson Wolfgang, because Jackson's working really hard down there trying to keep him happy. And I just love and appreciate you so much. And I hope everyone enjoyed what we've shared here, and just that it brings you closer to love.
Thank you so much, Gia. Great honor, great blessing. And thank you, everyone
always
who is out there for listening to us. Thank you so much.
We had some listeners, but we didn't have questions. So I just decided to be the question asker. And I will upload this to YouTube, and I'll upload this to Instagram, and people can always just comment their questions, and we can answer them, online.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.